Well, I'm alive. So I have a couple guests today, this afternoon here. It's night for one of them. It's same time zone for the other. So, hey, Paperback Junkie, hey. How you doing, Matt? So I'm going to get trapped here a little bit, okay? Because I'm going to be bookended by voluble Irishmen. So our first guest, and coming all the way from Ireland, is Jason Harrigan. And I think he's
from Jason Harrigan. That's very official.
That's right. And then I don't know if our other guest is ready. Yeah. So the other one is Steve Donahue. And I straight out here. I don't know which way to turn my person here because the screen's changed.
I feel like a rose between thorns.
Oh, yeah.
There's the real star of the show.
Oh yeah.
Hello, Crash.
Bit of weather last night, huh, Jason?
Yeah, well, we had great disappointment this morning because we had a nationwide yellow alert for snow, which pretty much means you're going to get snow.
Okay.
And Eve was very excited, my youngest, but we got no snow. The rest of the country has snow. We got a bit of ice and that's it. So, yeah. We can see snow in the hills from where we live, but we can't go there.
Oh, that's nice to look at, though, right?
Yeah, it's nice, yeah. The snow is great when you're a kid. It's a pain when you're an adult.
Oh boy, we had some doozy storms here this year, and you get a little. I love the snow. I just don't love shoveling it. But now I have teenagers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I look out the window just make sure everything's okay. Yeah. Tell them to straighten up here, get a little bit there.
Lots of snow in Nottingham. I see. Drawn to Stories popped up there, a new channel. You know, Jire. I think he's in Finland. He's been commenting for years, and he just started a new channel a few weeks ago.
Yes, he did.
Very good channel.
Yeah, we're talking weather to somebody who's watching from Finland.
Yeah. Hey, Duncan. There's a man knows what Scottish and Irish winters are like. Duncan McCardle. Well, yeah, it's been I mean, we're in the midst of a very severe lockdown. The entire country is in lockdown. And the mood music coming from our political leaders is this is going to be at least till March. Patrick's Day has been cancelled. And that was quite jarring because I remember them cancelling St. Patrick's Day last year, you know, parades and events. So we're a full year now of this. And kids are doing school from home. And they're not, I think they're not going to be back this school year. I think we're in lockdown till March, April, maybe May. I think we're just going to be stuck at home until enough people are vaccinated.
You have to hope that'll be enough.
Yeah, the new variant is...
The more I learn about the new variant, the more I think have once again been lying.
Yeah.
They were caught on an odd hop. How can something be 70% more communicable without being any more dangerous?
It's more dangerous, yeah.
It will certainly end up being more dangerous, and more dangerous mainly because this vaccine won't work on it.
Yeah, it's running.
It fights this cycle forever.
Yeah. But there'll be an end. It's just a bit further away than we hoped.
Can you imagine if this new variant, this new strain, is 50% more communicable and 50% more dangerous?
Yeah.
So that young people in the prime of life, like myself, are vulnerable to it.
I don't have to imagine, Steve. We went from like 100 cases a day nationally in all of Ireland to 8,000 cases a day of new infections, and that's just on people they tested. So that's the point, because it's a compounded increase. Just because something's 70% more communicable, you gotta. It's like interest, the magic of interest. It's compounded. It's way more than you would think. Yeah. Well, I mean, COVID is the reason the three of us didn't get in a room last May.
That would have happened.
Come to the States in May. I had done some preliminary booking of a friend works in Aer Lingus. I was just going to get a jump seat to Boston. He's senior cabin crew, so every now and again you can Yeah, you know what they call the jump seats. You can just jump on the plane. And I had great plans to come spend a couple of days in Boston and Jamaica Plains, and then go up to Vermont for 3 or 4 days. But
that's how
it's not going to happen.
That's how flight attendants do their own traveling, right? They just know when seats are available.
It's very cheap.
Yeah, and we had all that planned. We were going to spring it on the rest of BookTube.
Yeah,
and it didn't happen. And a pandemic got in the way.
My plan was just to have you recording, Steve, one of your videos, and then just walk into frame behind you and sit down on the couch. That would have been pretty good, yeah. With a big pack of double stuffed Oreos in my hand. That's a peace offering.
I did that once in a video years and years ago. There's a booktuber named Ben Sanders. Used to be very, very active on AuthorTube. Then he moved to gaming. He does a gaming channel now. But at the time, he was an active booktuber. He welcomed new booktubers, did a lot of writing-related videos. And one time he came up here to visit and for some reason didn't want to be on camera except to walk into the room and hand me my mail. And just walk off again. I still get emails about that. People find that video and say, what on earth? Does he live with you?
And so you would have had Sam Sachs around, and you would have had Deb around. You haven't been able to have anyone around.
No.
Recently, yeah.
No. In Deb's case, I'm grateful for the pandemic for that fact. But everybody else, I would have wanted everybody else to be here.
We used to watch just so we saw Deb.
Yeah. So what have you been reading today? You want to see what I've just finished reading?
Yes.
I think everybody wants to talk about books. Oh my God. The Boys from
Brazil. Mononuclear science in the Brazilian rainforest. Doesn't get any better. And look at our author. There's gold.
How young he is.
Oh, look at him there. You're 11.
Oh.
He's like a poor man's Umberto Eco.
Oh.
What we got there?
Look at that.
Family and Other Animals. Fantastic.
What edition is that?
What's that?
What edition is that? Who is that?
That's the what are they? The little Macmillan collectible ones there. Macmillan.
Very nice.
I like it because they fit right in my jacket. I just put them in the jacket pocket when I go out. So
yeah.
I never read it before, and Zoe Wall, Matt Wall's wife, is the one who told me about it. So I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
A lot of laughs. I mean, just I would be a nervous wreck in that family.
Yeah, but The Boys from Brazil holds up. I hadn't read it in a lot of years, and I hauled it last year. I love this is his best book, Rosemary's Baby.
I remember that movie. Oh,
and the movie's one of those weird movies where it's almost shot for shot, line for line. The dialogue from the book is mirrored almost exactly in the movie. Great movie. Mia Farrow.
It's a great movie. It's not anywhere near a great book. It's a perfect example of Steve's contention that the movie is always better.
Yeah,
he's right. It's shot by shot, line by line, and Levin is great with dialogue. But when you're not getting dialogue from him, you're getting the most awful Dashiell Hammett knockoff stuff in the world.
The filler is terrible.
The filler is it's terrible in a fun way. I agree with you. It's so much fun to read. But it's not good, and the screenplay takes it out.
Yeah, and they're the only two books of his worth reading, in my opinion. Yeah, everything else is just.
I like Boys from Brazil better than Rosemary's Baby.
It's great fun.
I don't know if maybe that's just the movie bleeding through, because I like the movie of Boys from Brazil much better than I like the movie of Rosemary's Baby. I think in the movie of Boys from Brazil, no one is phoning in their performance. No one, even the tiny one-scene parts, are completely memorable.
Yeah,
the prison scene, the woman's prison scene, where Laurence Olivier interviews a woman who used to be a camp guard.
That's right. Yeah,
she only has that one scene, and you'll never forget it. You'll never forget how she's been stewing in her own angry bitterness the whole time, without the actress ever being explicit about it. If I remember correctly, in that scene, Levin lays on the exposition, but that's all taken out for the scene. Yeah. For the scene, you just watch it, and you know that in a minute she would have her old job back if she could.
That's it, yeah. You could pick her out of a lineup. You could pick her out
Pick her out of a. You can pick so and so out of a lineup is a little bit of a sensitive turn of phrase when you have a long Irish family tree. Unfortunately,
we just had dinner before this around the table here with the family, because it's like 7:30 here. And I was saying to my oldest boy, we were talking about names, like our names. He's called Noah, and I always say to him, I always wanted to call him Balthazar, so he could lead a cult or be very wealthy. He'd probably end up just being called Baz and holding one of those signs with a load of numbers after his name. It's good fun, though.
You guys bring your book hauls.
No, I actually have a haul here.
So do I.
I did not.
Good, because you're the aggressor. It's about time you took a back seat. You're doing a book haul every day.
Yeah, I actually.
All I do to try to get a word in edgewise with two Irishmen. So
well,
book haul.
I got two mail calls. One from you and one from you.
No kidding.
Yes, the box arrived on Friday.
That was nobody in the chat is going to believe that wasn't planned. That was planned.
No, a box arrived from. They're actually just around the corner. I can go get them in a second. The postman put it in the shed, which he does regularly with parcels if he comes like very early in the morning or something. And he never writes notes because I'm just used to checking the shed, but I haven't been getting as many parcels. So it actually came on Friday, but I only picked it out last night out of the.
Is the shed different from the den of iniquity that you were going to build for your teenage boys to experience?
Yeah, this is just a shed.
So they don't hang out in there experimenting with crack cocaine.
Good story about the den of iniquity. I wanted to build this den of iniquity with the boys out in the back, but I gave them a budget, and they looked at the budget, they weighed up the budget, and they both bought gaming PCs for their bedroom. So that's where the budget went.
You know, it's unbelievable. Their generation does not think about the word privacy the way our generation did.
No.
Mine or yours or Mark's. You and Mark are both 30 years older than I am. But even so, Lander, there can be only one. For people their age, your son's age, privacy is entirely a matter of what you do online.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if 10 people are tramping in and out the door. Can you imagine? The thing that you proposed to them, I'm going to put forward a budget for you to build you your own space that'll have heating and electricity and everything. Think about when you were their age, that would have been a gift from God. And they turned you down. I'm just not interested in that kind of privacy. Yeah. Amazing.
Wouldn't use it. Yeah. Well, it turns out they were fairly prescient because they couldn't have used it for the last 12 months anyway. So, yeah.
You know, the problem with this is that Steve says that you're not my generation are pretty close, right? And he's talking about their privacy. The first time he came here and we had to do a video together, he didn't wear any pants.
I don't like them. What can I say? Well, when it comes to pants and also underpants, I say the same thing. I've got nothing to hide.
Well, I'm going to leave that alone.
That was Deb's contention in several of our divorces.
Oh.
I'm ready to bail.
Mark had a shed in the background of the old farmhouse, but it had an animal in it. It had what was his name? Chucky?
Ooh, you talking to me?
Yeah, there was a woodchuck in the little shed that you had in the last place.
Yeah, he was a big old boy, huh? Well, I can't do the size because I don't have enough screen. He was a big guy. Yeah.
My big head's taking up all the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Head is taking up all the screen. But this creature was bigger than Frida. Not that's not hard to do. Everybody's bigger than Frida.
Oh, a woodchuck. This is not a pet. This is a wild animal.
Yeah, no, it's like a groundhog, a woodchuck.
Oh, okay. If a woodchuck could chuck wood,
He did.
Is that the guy? Yeah.
If a woodchuck could chuck wood, he would almost certainly hate Brian from Bookish.
Well, I think oh my God!
The chat is now full of speculation on whether or not I'm wearing any pants right now.
Yeah.
I am not. If that helps it, even though it's a bit of a sacrifice on my part because it's mighty cold in Boston today.
Yeah, I can't see any. I see the odd comment come up in the bottom, but just to let people know, I can't see the comments field. So hi to everyone who's there. If there's anyone there, or is it just the three of us talking? I might be happy if it's just the three of us talking. 5 people.
5.
55.
You'd be right. I'm seeing more than 5 people in the chat right now.
Okay.
Oh, 55. Oh.
That's because Steve is here.
Poor Mark. He's like ninth generation, 900th generation in a northern state where 2 sentences is a long time to talk, and he's in a chat with you and me. That's got to be just awful. where we can't introduce ourselves in less than 20 minutes.
I, as part of the OGBG checkup, I done a genealogical background on him, and he's got a bit of Irish in him. There's a bit of Inch there, I think.
Not far from where you're at.
No, up in County Galway. I keep running into his relations. They said that he owes him £100, but he moved to Vermont. They haven't seen him since. It's so funny. Like it sounds like such a stereotypical thing, but it's happened to me more than once where you would be literally stopped in the street by a tourist from, generally, I'm going to say, the United States of America. And they would say, my name is David Murphy, and I'm looking for my relatives. Is there any Murphys living here? And I said, would that be the Hammer Murphy? Or
the same thing happens in Salem. Tourists routinely get off the bus in Salem. They walk up to some Salem inhabitant on the sidewalk and say, can you tell us where the house of the 7 gables is? And the people in Salem all say, it's that house with 7 gables. Just point at the only house in the whole city that has 7 gables.
And are you related to a witch?
Yeah.
The funniest I ever had was I had some visitors from America a few years ago staying with us, and Bunratty Castle is just down the road from me here. A beautiful, started as a Viking trading post in the 9th, 10th century. Castle was built about 1120. It's kind of a standard Norman keep now. Very impressive to look at. But the dual carriageway goes right by it. And I was driving into Limerick, bringing this couple into Limerick. They were actually getting on a train and going to Dublin and doing a bit of touring around. They had stayed a couple of nights with myself and Deirdre. And as we're driving by, the woman turned to me. She was in the front passenger. She said, isn't it great that they built the castle beside the road so you don't have to get out of the car to see it? What do you say? Well, I said it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's mighty courteous.
Good people. So what do you got for a haul there, Steve?
I have a book that I got in the mail.
I'm just going to get my haul.
It came late last night. My surly houseboy dropped it off this morning. It's just one package, but oh, hey baby, what you doing? Oh, here's my little bean. What you doing? What you doing? Oh, hello.
Whoa! Having a love moment over here.
She's not often in my videos anymore. The people will be loving this. Hello. Hello, baby girl. How you doing?
So will I show the books I got?
Yeah, he's never coming back.
Okay, well, Steve has his little love in there. So from your good self, Mark, I got a package last week.
Okay.
2 very interesting items. The first one is Parabola.
Yeah.
This journal here. So Parabola's been going for about 40 years. It comes out of New York, I think. It's a quarterly journal and looks at things like spirituality, esoteric religions and stuff like that. But this issue is great because it speaks to a lot of stuff I like sacred spaces, psychogeography, that kind of spirituality of place and stuff like that. So I was absolutely delighted with that, Mark. And as Steve would say, a bullseye. And the second one was The Ordering Mirror. I know nothing about this one now. Reading and Context. And this is the Ben Billette Lectures at Bennington College. There's a lot of B's there. But it's a lot of great.
Wait, hold that up again. Did you just say Bennington College?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
The Ben Billette Lectures at Bennington College. I got this from Mark here. So it's readers and context. Again, something I'm interested in. I don't probably talk enough about it on my channel, but I really love that kind of the contextualization of texts, how readers respond to them, how writers have come up with them. And say, for example, in the Rare Book Game, part of the business is putting a text in its context. That's what makes it, you know what I mean, interesting and saleable. And if that wasn't enough, then I got a box from Hyde Cottage, which was a great delight. Look at this beauty here, The Subject of Crusade.
Right.
2020 edition. Marisha Galvez. I actually know this author, Steve, because I have her book on plain song. She studies music through history and stuff like that. And this one is looking at texts and chronicles and epics, etc., related to the Crusade and how we can view them using the idiom of poetry and stuff like that.
Yeah, I thought of you the minute I got it.
It's right up my street because, I first got into the Crusades because of, sword and sandal kind of epics in a real life. That's what they were for me. But then as you go on, as you've often said, when you go into an area of history, you read the kind of main history first, then you read about the characters, you look at individual kind of actions, but then you start to look at the cultural context of the time. You look at things like the music at the time, the poetry at the time, what's been said after it. So it was absolutely fantastic. I'm going to devour that one, Steve. Brilliant stuff. And the last two from yourself, I don't want to hog this up. Talk about titles. Modern Book Collecting for the Impecunious Amateur by Herbert Faulkner West. And it says, let the wealthy collector have his Pickwickian parts, his Shakespeare folios. Here is an exposition for the poor and poor of collecting available modern first editions, not for monetary gain, but for the sheer joy of reading and owning. And the best reason for any book collector to collect any book is for the sheer joy of reading and owning. So that was there. And Herbert Faulkner West, I think he's from your neck of the woods, Steve. I think he was Jamaica Plains born anyway, and was fairly well known in the Boston literary scene, I would imagine, as a writer. And then this is great. This is Richard Landon, or essays in dedicated to literature. And this is A Long Way from the Armstrong Beer Parlour. And this is a life in rare books. And Richard Landon was the kind of librarian, curator, collector, book lover associated with the which library was he again? Sorry, the Fisher Rare Book Library. So that's it there, a series of essays. So that's my little haul. Very bookish indeed.
Yeah, I couldn't pass those up, and they sat for a while because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
Until I just decided, plenty of people are going to the post office. Plenty of people are working at the post office, and they're not dying. If you take precautions and they take precautions, then you'll be fine. So packages are going out.
Yeah.
Thankfully. Including
I have
later on this year, there's a Crusade-related book that you've got to.
Yeah, I have. Sorry to say, I have books for you, Mark, but I haven't got to the post office yet to send them.
Yep.
There's summer, summer cozy books with Quaker cats.
Yeah.
It is like I could listen to her talk all day long when she does her videos. Fantastic.
The cat's wandering in and out of her videos.
I know there's cats you don't like, but she's so grounded and so relaxed. I don't think Anton would flap that woman. She's very enjoyable,
peaceful and laid back, much like myself.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a package. We'll find out what it is together. I have no idea. It came in the mail. What do we got here? just one thing. What have we got here? Oh, okay. We've already seen this on my channel. This is the rather nice finished copy, but all I have is the invoice. But this is out already, I think, in the UK and the US. This is Ben Hawkins' Cathedral. His big, thick historical novel, Cathedral. Hardcover from Europa Editions. And a nice, smaller type thing. So, can we do a size comparison here? This is Volga. See, there, it's a smaller type thing. I like that. But this is very much along the lines of Pillars of the Earth, and I'm pretty sure it's a 2020 release. So I'm not. This happened yesterday too. I'm not sure why I'm getting 2020 books. Maybe it's a good sign. Maybe it means that people are going back to warehouses and clearing out the backlog. Which would be great.
Hey, Steve.
Yes.
I'm going to be honest. I didn't know Europa. Is that a Europa edition?
Yeah.
Hardback.
Yeah. Every once in a while they do hardcovers. This one is nice. I read Cathedral, but I'll read it again. Absolutely.
Hey, Bill Rutenberg.
That Volga book looks good as well. I saw that haul you done yesterday with the Volga, that river history.
And yes,
there's a great American river
books. Do you have a copy of that?
Which one?
Richard Ovenden's The Burning of the Book.
You know, it looked the title and your synopsis was very familiar. I think I do. I think I already have that, or I certainly have. I know I have a couple of books very similar in scope. But is it Overton or Over? Was it like
Ovenden? Yes.
Who was it?
Ovenden, Richard Ovenden.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's been out here. That's been out here for maybe 6 months or something like that.
Okay. I'm getting older books then, but that's all right.
Yeah, but that struck me when I saw that. I know there's another one called Books on Fire as well, which is a similar and has a similar cover with like a burnt out section. Yeah. I mean, it's a fascinating topic. How books have been viewed as weapons that have to be destroyed and controlled. You know.
His name sounds familiar to me. I don't have a window open here to look him up, but I could swear I've read a book of his before.
Yeah. What do you think of Ken Follett? Seeing as you held up Cathedral there and you mentioned Pillars of Earth.
I like it.
Do you like Ken Follett?
He wrote Pillars of the Earth.
Yeah.
And I think that I love that story too. You know, I love that story for all authors out there, because while he was writing reliably bankable spy thrillers, he was telling his agent and his publisher, I have something else I want to do. It's a huge multi-generational historical novel. It would easily be 1,000 pages. And most years they told him no. They told him, you know, that's not your contract. We want you to stick with what makes us money. And Pillars of the Earth has made more money than any of his books, all of his books put together. Because he eventually got to do it. He eventually got to follow his vision. I love that. I think that's fantastic. Authors ought to remember that, because most authors have that book in them somewhere, right? Usually it doesn't work. The example I always use is Lindsay Davis, who wrote a series of Roman murder mysteries set in ancient Rome that are terrific. They're very slangy. Yeah. Her main character is like Philip Marlowe. Yeah, a very slangy way to read. They don't read like historical novels at all. And she also had a passion project about the English Revolution. And when she brought it out, it did not do well. It was 1,000 pages long. It was multi-generational. It didn't do well.
It's a good book. I've read The Pillars of the Earth. It's because I like the Cathedral. To me, sounds interesting too. I love cathedrals, as you can probably guess. We've spoken about it before. I've been to most of the great cathedrals in Europe. But the thing that always gets me is just how long they took to build and how much money they cost.
Yeah. I mean, they were generational projects.
It's kind of like the pyramids. I can't get it clear in my head how just the time investment alone.
Yeah, I often think about that when I'm looking at the perpetual construction going on. on my street.
Mm.
It's been going on in this location since, well, the Iroquois started it. And then when the Pilgrims came over, they took it over. And it's been going on ever since then. It's going on forever. Multi-generational. Again, it's just the same piece of concrete. So it's a little strange that it would take so long. But nevertheless, when I look at it, I see the earth mover. I see the guy drive in the earth mover, lower the bill of it, shove it underneath huge slabs of concrete, lift those up, and tip them into a dump truck. And I think, he's doing that 10 times a day. Doing that once in one day would be the work of a 100-person crew.
Yeah.
And horses. Yeah. And if you watch that, and I have no choice, if you watch that, then you immediately realize how long this must have taken.
There's a man that's handy with an earth mover, I'd say, Noah.
Yeah.
Noah, and everyone who reads. I think Noah, he's a qualified license. I think he does big machines, earth movers, stuff like that. As well as the hottest Friday night live stream that he insists at playing at 2 a.m. Irish time. So I can't even see it. I'm tucked up in my bed and you all are having the best fun in the comments.
See, you played at a better time for you, but then you went into lockdown.
Yeah.
We don't want any part of that. But I look at that construction work and I think about, you'd need 10 men to lift one of those slabs of concrete. You'd need horsepower, you'd need ramps and pulleys and ropes and whatnot. And then I'm amazed that according to creationists, it was 40 people who built the Great Pyramids. It was Ham and his wife and his children who built the Great Pyramid, because at the time there were only 80 people in the world.
I have to say, as you know, I'm a Catholic, and I find myself often in the company of religious folk at retreats and stuff like that.
What do you do with people?
And like my heart sinks when I sit down beside someone, and like within the first 5 minutes of conversation, it's about Satan planting the bones of dinosaurs.
What do you do with people like that?
I know what I'd like to do. But I'm generally in polite company and generally in a setting that's kind of I just can't fathom it. I just can't. Faith is one thing. Okay, you can say, okay, look at this guy. He believes in some sky daddy, which is such a simplistic, but often made charge. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If you were to say, like, define God, well, how long have you got? Because I certainly can't do it. In such a simple term. But when people start saying, yeah, well, when you go against science, when the scientific kind of consensus shows you, I with my own hands and eyes, I've held things that are more than 6,000 years old. Man, I can go out and dig them up here. I have stone tools that people were using 10,000 years ago, and I've shown them before here. You know what I mean? And I just don't get it. And my heart sinks when someone starts that conversation. Because you can't argue in good faith, because the premise is wrong from the start.
Right.
The parameters are the goalposts are so far to the left, you can't have a good faith argument with them.
So Bishop Usher was from Ireland, right?
What?
Bishop Usher.
Bishop Usher. It's his fault. Yeah.
The thing that always mystifies me when people bring up Bishop Usher, and of course they always bring him up, is how flawed his counting is.
Yeah,
he's taking as read 1,000-year lifespans,
and he would be like at 3:17 on the 27th of July
at tea time,
year antediluvian time, year 17. This happened. You're like, wow, that's great. Bishop Usher, yeah. He used to work on Usher's Island in Dublin.
Got a question here.
Yeah.
Bookshelf. Why doesn't anyone read Gore Vidal? Well, my answer is I do. But you two gentlemen.
Gore Vidal, not my cup of tea. I'm not a fan, and nor am I looking for the great American novel. Outside of my reading, like Gore Vidal, Tom Wolfe, I've read like Bonfire of the Vanities. Who else writes the great American novel? Don DeLillo.
Yeah.
Don Camillo. I've read Underworld. I think that's the only one of his I've read. I'd walk past Gore Vidal all the time because it doesn't speak anything to me from a fiction point of view.
I love him. I love his fiction and his nonfiction. But if the question is why isn't he better read now? Why isn't he better read? Why isn't he better known now among general readers? My answer is because he's not around to guard his reputation anymore. Same thing with Mailer, same thing with Updike, same thing, I firmly believe, with Philip Roth, that the longer they're in the ground, the less legs their reputation will have.
Yeah.
And that was the sop I consoled myself with when they were ruling the literary world. And I was so frustrated by that. I would say, well, yeah, when you're not around to do Dick Cavett, no one will read your books anymore. It'll be a matter of no time at all. It'll be the inverse of, for instance, someone like Virginia Woolf or Edith Wharton, where it only went up instead of down. Gore Vidal's not around to go on talk shows and call himself the greatest living author in the world.
No. Which he did.
Okay, we got a question. This one's Deb at the History Shelf.
Deb at the History Shelf? When did she get into the chat? We know standards?
I'd like to know which fiction author the three of them dislike most.
Do we overlap? Is there anybody writing fiction that we all hate the same?
Right now?
Anybody?
See,
we overlap a lot on what we like, but is there any dislike that we overlap on?
Philip Roth, I don't like him.
What about
I just said I really don't read a lot of the kind of great, because for me on this side of the pond the argument always centers around which one of these is the greatest American writer, and that bores me to tears. It's like the Martin Amis and the Bad Boy crew in England mirrored what was going on in the US, and I wasn't hyped by that, and I'm not hyped by that. I've read Everyman, I think, by Philip Roth, which was a short little book. I thought it was terrible. Yeah, I thought it was boring. I thought the character was
a winner.
I don't know what happened. I didn't like Philip Roth at all, and would not be encouraged to pick up. Someone could change my mind to his other ones worth reading, but
I assume that the two of you like my bête noir and Alice Munro more than I do.
No, not a big fan of Munro. No.
Right, then we have two.
I'm not a huge fan of Cormac McCarthy either. I sometimes bring The Road up to you. I enjoyed The Road as a dystopian novel, not as some like great literary insight and stylistic writing. It was a father-son journey story that I've read 100 times before.
Yeah,
just with less punctuation.
Yes.
But his other stuff, again, it's lost on me as an Irish reader, as someone who's read mainly in the European tradition. All my main serious, like literary fiction reading would have been European writers in original and largely in translation. And I never read. It's like when you guys are discussing science fiction sometimes. You're bouncing names off each other, and I'm aware of a lot of them. I've read a good chunk of them, but some of them I have no recognition because they weren't here. They weren't on this side of the pond when you guys were reading them. So unless I've picked them up in anthologies or older books, but I was more likely reading English science fiction writers like Brian Aldiss and people like that, or Australian science fiction writers like John Baxter, who were published in the UK. A lot of the American ones, because it was such a, and I'll use the inverted commas, such a cheap genre, they weren't published in the UK as frequently as they were published, say, for example.
So did you read a lot of Ballard?
J.G. Ballard, yeah, exactly, all that kind of stuff. And then loads of lesser-known English authors that you guys wouldn't know, you know, or maybe not know as well, you know.
I see some of that. I see the difference there sometimes when I read Anthony Burgess on science fiction, because those are the authors he's talking about. He's not talking about Robert Heinlein or Isaac Asimov. He's talking about British authors. It's
same. Kingsley Amis has a great book on science fiction as well, on the kind of, and he mentions a lot of names that I know really intimately, and then he's talking about American and Canadian writers, and I'm like, I have no idea who he's talking about, you know. So it's that's one thing about Booktube, is this cultural mixing. sometimes we're not as culturally mixed as we think we are with books, because books are in translation or don't move around the world. Certainly 20, 30 years ago, like they do now. It takes a lot longer for a book to get legs in another country. Nowadays, it's simultaneous releases and all that kind of stuff, Yeah, interesting. But Alice Munro. No, there's no Alice Munro on my shelves.
There was a question from Noah about how I read 1,000 books a year.
Right.
I want to stress, especially since I've got Mark and Jason here, that it could be easily, they would do the same thing if they had nothing else to do.
Yeah. Well, I read a fair chunk because I'm like, even without pandemic, I work for myself, and I work very short hours compared to the average person. So, like, I do.
But you have the impediment of a wife and children.
Yeah, but I'd still manage 10 or 12 books a week. Say if we're talking like this kind of stuff, novels and stuff. Like Boys from Brazil, I started this morning. I read a bit this morning, and I'm on 234, and I've got 50 pages left. So I'll finish that after this. And I was reading another book today as well that I finished. Thomas Merton's literary essays. I just had a couple to finish off. A beautiful collection of his literary essays, not his religious essays.
I remember you holding it up.
He's such an amazing writer on any kind of subject. Because he had the time to sit there. What else was he doing? Sitting in Hermitage. Every word is crafted, every phrase is thought over, and
that connects with another part of what I want to answer Noah with, which is something that may be generational, that we three share, that maybe he doesn't, which is the ability to concentrate. Young people, not to sound stereotypical, they answer their phones. They listen to the ping of notifications. They have been trained over the course of 20 years not to pay attention to anything for longer than a few minutes at a time.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm pretty sure that you two gentlemen would have shared my experience of losing whole hours in a book.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a cultural thing as much as anything else. And that helps to read a lot. If when you're reading, you're not doing anything else.
I remember there was a tag, and it asked like what music do you play when you're reading and stuff, and I'm like, I don't play music when I'm reading. When I'm reading, I'm reading. When I'm playing music, I'm listening to music.
Well, Mark, don't you often have music in the background when you're playing? I've noticed if someday, Jason, you will get up to the old farm, and the place is saturated with music. He's got music playing all the time.
I see from his Instagram, he's always, he pulls great albums, and I see if you're set up around the TV, with all the and it looks fantastic. I've a fair few albums, but it's something I've never really thought of.
So Philip Craig, Martha's Vineyard Mysteries. Good Lord!
Hey, great.
Why on earth would you ask? They're very good. But why on earth would you ask?
Oh, look at this! Have you watched Lupin on Netflix? Randy Brown, I have, and it's fantastic.
I've heard so much praise of Lupin. I meant to watch it. I've set aside time, and I end up reading instead. Yeah. I just don't do it.
Well, you should. I just have to go for 1 second.
Right.
Carry on there, Will. Maybe back in a second.
Hey, Peg, I would recommend Dune.
Oh, but the question is wrong, Peg. One book won't do it. You have to learn the sensibility of the genre. One book wouldn't do it for any genre.
I do Dune.
Oh, Jason and his head are back.
Oh, the Arsène Lupin omnibus.
Oh, look at that.
If anyone hasn't read Maurice Leblanc, they should. And one of the things I love about Maurice Leblanc, I'm a kind of a Holmes fan, is he wanted to pit Lupin against Sherlock Holmes, and he ran into trouble with copyright, so he started calling him like Hemlock Schmlones and all this kind of stuff. Loads of the stories in it are like.
What is that edition?
In that edition, the first one is Arsène Lupin versus Hemlock.
Everyman? Is that an Everyman edition?
No, well, it'd be similar. This is just a Wordsworth.
Oh, Sean Canvas had a bunch of them.
Yeah.
Very nice.
You probably can't see. So behind me is my kind of horror-y shelves, and these are all.
Look at all those Wordsworth editions! Wow.
Because if you want like the collected E.F. Benson or something, $250.
Right.
You can Like, I like a nice first edition with a hardback. That's great, but that's going to cost me £250.
You know what?
Not €2.50.
You know what shelf I want to see? I want to see the top shelf.
Up here. Oh no, in there. That's the top shelf here is reference books.
Oh,
They're all just bibliographies all along there.
that's not good enough.
No. Do you want me to do a shelf tour of the erotic section? I get quite a few people ask me to do that actually and show the pictures, but the channel would be banned.
Oh, I know.
I'll do a private listing video for you and I'll send you the link. What's
Paperback Junkie, who, by the way, is back on BookTube. Matt Wall, excellent, love the way. He went. You get book covers over there, but do you?
I don't think so. No.
Not the ones he's thinking of.
Not no. We get like occasionally. I get like right. My older vintage paperbacks are here. 1 second, hang on.
He's thinking about the DAW books that you and I grew up with.
Right.
No, we don't get those here. Like, so I like these kind of John Murray paperbacks. These are the old vintage pulpy ones.
Look at that.
Oh, that cover.
Or this is again John Murray.
Yeah.
So I buy these just for the cover, just for the cover art. They're nice to read too. They're good size. So yeah, but DAW, no, not familiar to me here.
Okay. Yeah.
I'd see Orbit,
Yeah.
Pan, Pan books, Panther books. Panther, Panther, yeah, those ones, yeah. That's what I get. And I'm not familiar with Martha's Vineyard.
So when I was younger.
Not familiar with Martha's Vineyard? What?
No, I did read 4 pages of the Martha's Vineyard Gazette that my books from Boston were wrapped.
Oh, yes, you
I folded it out.
Here in your house.
I folded it out and read it.
Book reviewer right here on the channel. Not familiar with it. You'll have to go there someday. It's amazing. It's just amazing.
Oh, Peg wants to read Dune. You should, Peg, before the movie comes out.
Oh, yes, before the movie. It's
a good thing.
Yeah.
I thought the trailer looked okay, but I just have a feeling I don't know how anyone could make Dune. I really don't. I don't know. I do read Dune. I haven't read it in 10 plus years, but
the Sci-Fi Channel did a great job making Dune. They even added dialogue, which you'd think would be sacrilege to me, but it was wonderful. It was extremely well done.
Do a tour of your attic.
The attic's just over my head. Yeah. There's about 40 boxes of books up there, and some of them are unopened from when we moved into this house over 10 years ago.
How could you leave them up there?
Well, I know they're okay because they're in long-term storage boxes.
Not condition, but wouldn't you just have the urge to go in them? Would you always be up there?
No, I don't be up there a couple of times a year to get down Christmas decorations and stuff. Other than that, I don't go into the attic. No. But a lot of the books in there, Steve, they're not books I would have ever shelved anyway. Because shelf space is such a premium that there could be good books up there, like expensive books, but I wouldn't have them on my shelf because I don't necessarily want them on my own shelf. So I don't know what's in a lot of them, that's being perfectly honest. Yeah. And then there's loads of ephemera, loads of brochures, like every castle I've ever visited, with the brochure, the guided brochure book, and then I would have picked up any older ones of those I found from, say, all the castles of the United Kingdom and stuff like that. So there's boxes and boxes of that stuff.
I was just about to ask why you would keep something like that, but then I realized you're a bit of a pack rat. So
yeah.
You would keep that sort of thing.
My favorite. What's your favorite myth? Corey Black wants to know. See that? What's your favorite myth?
Well, I've said mine on my channel before. It's not a whole myth. It's just part of a myth that Ulysses' dog waits for him to come home. Odysseus' dog waits for him to come home.
I like that.
Him and dies.
I like
that his dog waits for him.
Yeah, I think being Irish, I'll plug for the Irish myths. I like Cuchulainn and the
Yes. Finn
and
McCool.
Phil McCool, the stories of Phil McCool. They're just great stories. And,
I don't understand why they're not more popular. I mean, Randy Eckert did a series of novels about the Red Branch cycle. They were really, really good. They were a mainstream science fiction and fantasy publisher in America, and they didn't catch on.
If someone done a kind of a, that movie 300 that was based on the comic book novel. If someone done a 300 style story of Cuchulainn, it would be an international smash hit.
I don't know why it hasn't happened. I read Ken Flint did a series of novels about Irish mythology, and they were great. Absolutely. A Storm Upon Ulster was his one about the famous bit in Cuchulainn where he has the narrow ford, and he's able to hold off a whole nation of warriors from that.
There's 300. There's the story of 300 right there. The passive.
That novel had 2 printings, but it didn't go anywhere. It had a bunch of sequels. They didn't go anywhere. I don't get it. And Penguin Classics has never done that. They do the cattle raid of Cooley, but they've never done the whole thing in one book.
They have one Irish myths and legends, and it's just snippets. You don't get the whole story. Yeah.
And they did the Kinsella translation.
Yeah.
Of the cattle raid of Cooley, but not the rest of it.
Yeah. Good pronunciation on your Irish place name, Cooley.
Peg at the History Self is still in the chat. Mark, what I thought StreamYard came with an anti-peg filter. No?
Mark, what's in your shopping list?
So my list, a lot of mine is just finishing sets where I might get a good deal on a set, but I'm missing one volume. So I have an old author's edition of Mark Twain, where out of the 25, I'm missing volume 3. So, I do a lot of that, and I've got a few like that, but mostly I've been doing the T.S. Eliot stuff lately.
Yeah.
But do you actually keep a list?
No, it's in my head.
No. And are you the same, Jason? Where if you go to a big crowd or you know what you want, but you won't say what you want ahead of time?
I have done what Mark done in the past, where I have gone in and there's a 6-volume set and they've got 5 volumes. And I've bought it saying to myself, I'll find the missing volume. Narrator's voice. He didn't find the missing volume.
Well, the thing, when you the thinking is always it's more likely I'll find the missing volume than that I'll ever do the whole set again.
Yeah. And sometimes it can be a really intriguing set. The only exception to that was I found a 3-volume set on this, and it's so random. It's on sieges of the Peninsular War.
Okay.
Kind of in 1881, 1882, probably only 500 of them made. And I found volume 1 and volume 3 and said, well, I like my Napoleonic history. I like my siege history. Great if I had 3 volumes. And I bought the 2 volumes, and this was in Hay-on-Wye in the UK. You know, the book town up near Hereford, where all the SAS men tried to hang out looking inconspicuous with their mustaches. And I literally left the shop, having bought them, and paid something like £60 for the 2 books, because they are rare enough. And the second shop after that I went into, I found in a slight variant color binding, but the same printing, volume 2 sitting on its own.
Nice. It
was like £1.50, and I went, I'll have that, thanks very much.
A 3-volume history of siege warfare in the Peninsula campaign.
In Spain, yeah, just on the siege.
Was it dedicated to you by name?
No, it should have been. I won't go get it. I keep disappearing.
But I love this.
If I got it, I could show you where the volume color is just slightly different on the spine. Yeah. But I gave up buying broken sets because, in my experience,
you don't ever find
them. Hard to finish them, yeah.
So you don't do it anymore?
No.
I'll
buy an ongoing series.
But if you were at a used bookshop and you came across some set of 6 that was missing 1 volume, you wouldn't take it?
No, not anymore. No.
I usually do pretty well with it. I'm persistent, and eventually I get there.
Yeah. I've seen you do it. I've seen you in the years I've been watching you, Mark, I've seen you pull books to finish sets. Because you have a great run of those like British author series and yeah, so persistence. I just probably don't have the patience to do it.
I let the Brattle be persistent for me.
Well, we could all do it a Brattle.
Yes.
I was there. I told you I've been in the Brattle. Yeah, I had Deirdre with me. We were staying in Boston. We stayed in Copley Plaza, the old hotel there, not the new one, where Babe Ruth used to be based. That was their selling point. Tiny rooms, tiny elevators.
Tiny rooms, but a wonderful place to stay.
A wonderful place to stay. Much better than the shiny new Copley Plaza that was across the road. And they had a great diner downstairs. The breakfast there, I didn't have to eat till like supper time.
No, the food at Copley Plaza is legendary.
Well, we went around I had to visit Lame Duck Books to look at something that they had there. They had an Erskine Childers signed book I wanted to look at. Again, rare booky stuff. And I knew the Brattle was there, so we went there. And I went inside, went up the different floors, bought a few books. And then I went out and was going to go in the lot. But we were there in like February, and Deirdre was like, no, we're not hanging around the lot. It was freezing, So we went on a duck tour, on the amphibian duck tour into the Boston Harbor.
It's not much of an improvement if you're cold.
No, it was freezing anyway, yeah.
But Mark, when you and I went there together, was that your first time going to the Brattle?
Yes.
You go there when you were stationed.
I didn't go when I was stationed. I used to go to this dump named Barnes and Noble. You were there.
I probably was.
81.
The guy in the information desk had no trousers on all the time.
I thought
It's a trip we'll always remember. No, I wore pants. It was strict policy at Barnes and Noble.
you probably had to have a policy before you got there.
Mhm.
There were all sorts of informal policies when it came to me. I made sure the staff knew if you don't finish some piece of food that you've gone out to get, save it for me. Don't throw it away. Don't waste it. Just put it in my locker in the break room. And they would say, well, shouldn't it be refrigerated? And Deb would say, no, he doesn't care about that. Just leave it in his locker. He'll eat it no matter what.
Yikes. All right, so only bookshelf. Can you guys recommend adult fantasy books for beginning readers?
Adult fantasy books.
For beginning readers, meaning young readers.
No, I'd say just beginning out in adult fantasy. I just got...
Ursula Le Guin would be my choice. Just start with Earthsea.
Oh, yeah, Ursula again. Yeah.
Can't go wrong there.
There's plenty of good series, I think, but that would be, you can't beat that. My favorite myth is meritocracy.
Skjordor.
I was talking to Ursula Le Guin once, and she was going on about how she does not understand why she is beloved. And I said, well, there's probably nobody here that's going to be able to explain it to you. So how about we just change the subject and maybe you could recommend some of your books? And she said, oh, if I'm going to recommend books, it's going to be anybody's books but my own. There are so many great authors out there. And I said, okay, we'd be happy to hear that, but you've already answered why you're beloved. She says, what? What was that?
How much do you spend each month on OGBG book hauls? As little as possible.
Yeah, but you were ready. You were prepared for a gigantic book hunting.
Oh yeah. Well, you see, I have people keep stuff for me in different places. So I go. So that's kind of the rarer book stuff. So I wouldn't necessarily include those then in the hauls because I might have paid like €500 for something if it's if it's of interest. But that's business. But when I go hauling books for like if I'm getting a stack of non-fiction, which most of mine would be with a bit of fiction, I'm looking to spend like, a couple of euros each at the most. Yeah, for books for my own shelves. Like that, I've never differentiated between putting a cheap ass paperback mass market, which I love if I want the book and want the text. I'll stick it beside a 200-year-old book in a vellum binding. Makes no odds to me. It's what's between the covers, baby.
you can't really tell it here, but Mark's collection is the same way. You never know what you're going to encounter from one book to the next on the shelf because all three of us read for what's in them.
Yeah. Well, in Vermont, they're still using colonial cents to shop, it seems to me, because he goes out and gets like 10 books for $5.75, and that includes gas, and he's gas guggling 4 monster truck.
And you should see the sweet ladies who are always at the registers at the places where he buys books up there.
Oh, I can imagine
these
flipping off him.
The total is probably $3, and these sweet ladies, without any prompting, will say, "Oh, honey, let me give you a discount." It's Vermont, just through and through.
Yeah.
I typically used to pay little or nothing for Brattle book hauls, but in 2021, I've sort of made a mental decision: no credit and no small purchases, because they need it, right? Yeah. The shops that are open don't need me. They don't need me using credit. And they don't need me going in for a $3 purchase. So I go in and spend a chunk of money. And it feels really good to do.
That's it. And I spend, I would show like Tartarus Press or Sidewheel Press or Fulger Press I'm waiting a book from. So I spend like most of my budget for my own books with like fine presses and small presses, independent presses, to kind of support them. So their standard hardbacks might be 40, 50, 60 pounds. But it'd be a limited edition and stuff, but I'm less interested in that more than someone's bringing a book that otherwise a mainstream publisher wouldn't bring out to life, and they're taking care of how it's presented and et cetera, et cetera. So the bulk of my own money that I spend on books from my own budget goes to fine and small presses,
So the places that you said put things aside for you, how are they doing? Are they holding out?
Not great. No bookshop is doing great now, I don't think. And I think they're hanging in there with curbside pickups. I mean, in Ireland, they're just closed. That's it. They can do pickup, but that's only for people living within 5K. And
a portion of their work is done with sending books overseas. Can they do that anymore?
They can, but as you gentlemen have discovered recently, I'm sure, the cost now of sending books internationally is phenomenal. It's just become unaffordable for most businesses, because you really have to be selling a special book for someone to say, okay, I'm happy to pay $50 postage plus insurance. It's not going to be a $20 book. If I opened a bookshop, I had plans that they're gone out the window. There's no way I could open a bookshop in the next 12 months anyway, given where things are at. But like, I wouldn't have international customers, much as I would love. You'd say, oh, well, I'll support Jason and buy a book from his bookshop, but you're not going to buy an Ursula Le Guin hardback novel for 20 quid and then pay 30 quid postage. You might once to support a place, but
you won't do it regularly.
No. So
what is that book right over your left ear? What is that? There's a book directly behind your left ear. It looks like it has buildings on the spine. What is
this one here?
Yes. Yeah, that one right there.
That's a new one. I haven't got to that yet. That's
that one right there. What is that?
You know the author, I'm sure, or maybe you don't. Alex Phoebe. This is Mordew.
Oh, I saw you hold that up.
Yeah, it's first in a proposed trilogy. This is adult fantasy. Well, I think it's young fantasy. I'm not entirely sure, but I'll try this one out and
I don't know that book. It's never come out in the US.
Yeah, it's only a new release here, and I actually, to be honest with you, I had a voucher for Amazon for my birthday that my mother-in-law gave me, and I was looking, just browsing around, and I saw the picture. It was in that kind of, you've read this, so why not read that? And see the cover there. See this little boy looking up the wall.
Boy, yes, that's nice.
And it's set in a kind of a seaside town. The premise is it's built on the body of a dying god. So a bit of Lovecraftian kind of stuff going on there, I'd say too. So Philip Nicholson, how are you? What's this? Jason Esterica. What was a lot of Moorcock and third practicing chaos magic? Okay, mainly overcome heartbreak. Any recommendations on it? Self-help. So chaos magic. I mean, Peter Carroll is probably one of the best one of the best writers on chaos magic. It's still such a new discipline. It's very hard for me to recommend stuff because there's so little stuff published in chaos magic that's of any good, Philip. So Peter Carl, Psychonaut and stuff like that. I don't know if you're familiar with it. That would be a book I think is a good introduction to chaos magic. And is it? You come on the hop here now. Hine, I think Phil Hine is probably. I think it's Phil Hine is another good writer on chaos magic. But I'd certainly recommend starting off with something like Psychonaut by Peter Carroll as introductory stuff. But chaos magic, as by its nature, is very hard to define. But as a practice, it's something that's relatively new, and I think the abiding kind of guideposts in it, Philip, are it's what makes you comfortable practicing. That's what chaos magic is. It's taking elements from different kind of systems, different practical magic systems, different theoretical systems, and then applying them on a very much personalized basis. So I know people in the UK primarily who've been probably practitioners for a decade or more and seem to be quite impressed with it. So there's an insight into the world of chaos magic anyway. But I think it's Peter Carl. I'm pretty sure Psychonaut or Librarian is either the title. But Philip, I'll do a video on it and put some ones in there. There you go, for all the chaos magic fans. Grant Morrison, who you guys would know, is a big chaos magic fan. So chaos magic is just this kind of amalgamation of all different kind of magical traditions and the practitioner thereof. But there's not a huge amount of good books on it, Philip, is your answer. Has anyone read Decca or the Polar Times? Is that Scott's Polar Times, the actual newspaper? Or?
I think Decca refers to the collected letters of Jessica Mitford. I think I brought that up.
Right.
The Polio just come up with a whole Polio Society just did a whole box set of the Polar Times, right?
Yeah, that was a newspaper that they published at the polls. Yeah, the Polar Times. Yeah, I've read copies of it, but not.
Can you imagine how long the live stream would be if the three of us were in the same room? Can you imagine if that trip actually had happened and we did this conversation over wine in Vermont? Can you imagine? Mark's technical support would someday have to go to bed.
There's Lindsay Bartlett. I think I know. Is that the mad rhetorician on Instagram? Some of the faces I know from Instagram and not from Booktube. That's funny, isn't it? Hi, Lindsay, if it is. Sorry.
I need to get a lot more involved in Bookstagram. I most of the channels that I follow on Instagram have nothing to do with books, and that's bad. I really ought to be a lot more active there.
Here's your question here now. Which side's wedge would you like that?
It's not fair for me because the names that you list, I knew. I talked many times with Donald Walheim and his wife, and I met Terry Carr a couple of times, so I might be a little biased. Although I bet Mark and I would both lean towards Terry Carr.
Yeah, I'd go Terry Carr, Gardner Dozois. I don't know why, but I mean, you'd wonder why Ben Bova isn't on the list. I mean,
he did a lot of work, a lot of great anthologies. And if you talk great editor in terms of who elicited the most gratitude from authors, Ben Bova would win over all of those people. He got right down deep into the story that you sent him to help bring it, to its best form.
Didn't do it for himself, though.
No, no, he didn't. He thought he didn't need to. He was from the era that thought, I learned my craft in the pulps, and now I write perfect prose. And thankfully, they're all gone except for Robert Silverberg. He's the only one left from that era who still cannot be edited. When he gives his column to Asimov's or whichever of those two he writes for, no matter how windy and wandering and inaccurate it is, it can't be touched. It's just have to run it this way. Because he's the last great titan of classic science fiction who's still alive. So he can do whatever he wants. What the? Canadian authors?
Who are your favorite Canadian authors?
This is an attempt to get me to go on a tirade about Alice Munro, and I'm not going to fall for it. Oh, there you go.
Love Farley Moet.
Probably, that's great. Fantastic.
Yes, Highbury. Alex Felby did write a fictional book about James Joyce as a kid. And this is his first foray, I think, into fantasy.
Smooch.
It was quite a good book, actually. The dog is back.
Yes, my little baby being.
Oh, that is you, the Mad Richardson. Sorry, Lindsay. How are you?
Well, we've gone on quite a bit here. How long have it been, Deb?
Is it time for a commercial break?
I think we're getting towards the end of it.
Oh, no.
You want to go more?
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
And let's make sure to do it again next weekend. If we don't have 100 people in the chat, this is a failure.
Discoverers, creators, and seekers. I love them.
You're a much bigger fan of that trilogy than I am. I thought of you the minute I saw the question.
Haven't read them.
Oh,
Have you read any Borston?
No, not ringing a bell.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed them. I like that kind of survey. They were really big during, like, not these particular ones, but after World War II, there was a golden age
Of survey type things. Probably kicked off by Civilization, right? By Kenneth Clark, by Civilization. That's probably what did it.
Yeah.
What gave
Well, I've read Civilization.
Yeah.
A terrific series, though, TV series.
Yeah.
of the TV.
Groundbreaking.
The TV series is great. I also love the book. I
Yeah.
thought it was just wonderfully done.
I passed a hardback copy recently up in Galway because just the dust jacket was in. It had kind of half a dust jacket, and I kind of wanted it. It's not that old that I can't find one with
Oh,
a complete dust jacket. It was nice first edition because I think for a history shelf, Civilization is a great book, and no one. Well, people are writing that kind of history now, but he was the OG. No, not as well.
When you're looking around in Mark's library, you can tell that he likes those kind of survey books because he's got tons of.
I think the only recent one I've read that would stand up would be the guy who wrote Homo Sapiens, is it? Noah.
Well, yeah, I can't remember his name.
I can never remember his full name, and I have.
Ferrari.
Yeah, I have.
Survey things like that, although they're not the same.
No, not the same, but reminded me of it. Yeah.
Whereas something like Burston is just taking you through the history without an ideological bent.
There's a guy done one. Is it After the Ice or Before the Ice? Oh, the name is eluding me now. And he does it where he goes back. He sets himself up as like a 19th century Victorian scientist, anthropologist, and he basically is looking at prehistory to after the Ice Age and stuff. I think it's called After the Ice. It's a big, large single.
Yeah, I remember it.
It is true. I'll dig out the name for you, but it's skipped my head now. But it's one of those long, in chronological order, looking at the earliest kind of human settlements, and he goes to actual sites as if he's like an observer, seeing them in like a field observer. And I love that kind of archaeohistory, where it is archaeology and it is history, but it's this hybrid of the two that's just a great read. Yeah. Yeah.
I think of Simon Skama when he did the British Isles stuff.
Yeah.
And with a series like that, or Borston, or even especially Kenneth Clark, he kicked it off. You're really going to that for the insights of the author rather than for the dates and the facts.
I always like Sean as citizen.
The author.
Yeah.
Well, on the station, the subtitle is A Personal View.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. Peter Ackroyd does the same thing.
Peg wants to know if Jason has any interest in Paris catacombs. Well, Booktube has you pegged, don't they?
Yeah.
I've been to the Paris catacombs.
Yes, I've been. I've been to catacombs in, I want to say Budapest, but I could be completely wrong. It could have been Prague, where there was ossuary chapels underground, more than catacombs. They were like ossuary altars built
I
out
went
of
to a catacomb.
bones, some Orthodox monk bones, I believe there were.
I went to a catacombs in Prague, and the guide pulled out a drawer, and Deb was inside it. That was our second marriage. She'd been there for a long time. She was on a tour, and she got lost. Figured she'd just stay there. But
I can't think of a good book on.
There was a murder mystery that revolved around the Paris catacombs. I was going to ask if you knew what that was because it was a UK author, and it's right out of my head. I have no idea.
The last thing I've read it in would be fiction, so I can't remember.
Yeah, the most memorable thing that I read about it was fiction, but I can't remember anything about it. No. That's terrible.
No.
I mean, I would understand if you or Mark were drawing a blank, but I'm a '90s kid. For my memory to be going at this stage, it's just terrible.
So Idic Warrior reads, any tips for a new booktuber? I've got one, and be careful what you watch. So
look at the crowd that he's fallen in with.
Yeah.
You want to be very careful as a new booktuber. If you get on a live stream with me or Jason and we say, that reminds me of a story, you're in big trouble.
Yeah, I would say learn how to edit videos.
one of us does that.
Someone messaged me one time and said, I was wondering, could you do a 55-minute video? Because that's the length of my workout, and I'd like to listen to you for the entire time I do it. I felt a little bit dirty after that message. I felt a little bit hard to do too.
I've had a number of emails from people telling me that the series of videos that I did, ripping the guts out of Cormac McCarthy's The Road, is their favorite workout material. And I'd like to listen to that while they're working out. I think you've got to be the nerdiest person in that gym.
You see, one thing always gets me is when I make a video that's more than like 10 minutes, I fully expect that 85 to 90% of the people who started the video are not there 10 minutes later. Like, wow. I would say you lose. I don't know the metrics of it, but my gut feeling would be that once I go over 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I think you've lost a lot of people. But I don't care. So
you're not any less interesting after 10 minutes. Why would somebody stop?
You can just move on to the next thing. Maybe it's concentration. And who's got half an hour to listen to a balding, middle-aged, pasty-faced Irishman? Or myself.
I was going to say the sequence is Jason says that reminds me of a story, and then you're good for 40 minutes. I say that reminds me of a story, and you're good for 40 minutes. And the Vermont version of that is for a Vermonter to say that reminds me of a story, and he doesn't say anything else because he was just telling you it reminds him of a story. He has no intention of sharing his stories. You have known his family for 100 years.
You see, the day the three of us do get in a room, that's what it's just going to be. It's just going to be swapping stories, drinking some fine whiskey, and myself and Mark being men of culture, smoking a nice cigar.
I don't know which is more revolting. The whiskey. Look at anybody drink whiskey. And why not just go to the local gas station and drink from the fountain, from the nozzle?
I'll bring the good stuff. The Irish for whiskey is Ishka Baha, and it literally means the water of life. So I'll bring the good stuff over.
So we got a question from
rabble-rousing question.
Favorite piece by Faulkner and Virginia Woolf. Now
I was just reading Virginia Woolf.
Virginia Woolf, I can go on and on. Faulkner, I don't have any.
I've recently just been reading A Room of One's Own.
Look at that.
Terrific little, wonderful 90-page essay, is it? 90-page story. It's an essay.
Incredible. It's an incredible book.
But great, terrific book. Highly recommend it. And To the Lighthouse. There you go. There's two from Virginia Woolf.
I've been reading her book reviews. There's a series, a multi-volume series, The Collected Essays of Virginia Woolf. And later on, after volume 2, they are essays. But the first two volumes, they're going in chronological order, and the first two volumes are just book reviews, sometimes 400 words, where she's battering it out on a typewriter on a deadline without doing the Virginia Woolf style deep pondering. And her book reviews are amazing. They're amazingly good. The amount of stuff she gets done in 400 words.
Just a gifted writer.
Yeah, just to anyone.
Writer. Yeah.
Just amazing.
I would have loved, I probably would have hated it personally, but I would have loved to be a member of the Bloomsbury set. What a time to be alive. It would have been just phenomenal. I think if you cast your inhibitions aside, what a time you would have had.
What did they think of themselves? All the books on Bloomsbury that I've ever read, and I've never got a clear sense of that. I always remember Christopher Hitchens' quote, "You don't start out intending to have a set."
Yeah.
It sort of happens.
It's a set after the fact.
Right. So what did they think of their association at the time? How famous was the Bloomsbury set when they were all alive?
Yeah, well, you see, it's a literary creation after the fact, isn't it? A little bit. It's a bit like 84 Curzon Street or whatever.
So if you'd said to Lytton Strachey, if you'd gone to him and said, "Who's in your literary set?"
Yeah.
Would he have named 4 people you don't think about anymore?
Yeah. It's the same thing with things like the Fabian Society and all these little groups that, attracted like-minded people. Like Golden Dawn, the occult group had Bulwer Lytton Stratton, had W.B. Yeats, were all as full-blown members, dressing up in the ceremonial robes, walking around holding swords, evoking Isis and Ra and Thoth. But again, it seems way more interesting after the fact.
Yeah.
I think about the Inklings, they were somewhat intentional.
Yeah, they named themselves, right? They had their own.
They were a very small geographical group, yeah.
They still morphed. What the Inklings were at the beginning, not what they were at the end.
Yeah, true. It's a bit like the OGBG. Very malleable around its edges.
Yes. You just have to have the requisite mental deficiencies, and you'll be fine.
But that's what I was reading. I read that yesterday. I was sitting down here, and I read it start to finish. Terrific little.
I absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. I think I consider it the greatest essay ever written in English.
Yeah.
From Paperback Junkie, Jason, what's your channel?
Jason Has Books.
Jason Has Books.
Very original title.
That wasn't the book. What is the Paris Catacombs book that I'm thinking about? That's going to drive me nuts. There was a murder mystery.
Yes, Matthew Baxter. That I know that book he's talking about, though. I think that's good.
Another question here.
Best book on the Troubles in Northern Ireland.
Now, Jason, when you get a question like that, do you tend to look down on popularizers like Tim Pat Coogan? Or does he do a fair enough job?
Tim Pat Coogan hasn't got a great reputation here. It depends on your political viewpoint. I have read all of, his works on Dev and Michael Collins and, that kind of stuff. But he's an Irish-American historian. He's not an Irish historian. He's writing for a different market. He's writing for a diaspora, not for a native Irish market. That's what Tim Pat Coogan does.
So do you have some preferred Irish authors on the subject?
It's really difficult to give you one book on something like the Troubles and say this is the book to read that will give you an unbiased overview.
Right.
You got to think partisanship on the level of recent Republican and Democrats, far right and far left. If you want to talk about a Catholic history of Catholic nationalist Republican history of the Troubles, and all three of those are different histories, Catholic, national, and Republican, versus a Protestant unionist Scotch-Irish history. And those, again, are three different histories of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. And anything I would, as a Catholic Irish Republican, that would resonate with me would be poo-pooed by people on the other side. So no one has yet, to my mind, written the definitive one volume work on the Troubles that I'd happily say, yeah, here's a book you could read and you'll get all the answers. But there's lots of great books on it, on parts of it. You know what I mean?
It doesn't seem from watching your channel like it's a subject that really interests you.
It does. It interests me greatly. My wife's people are from Belfast. I spend a lot of time in Northern Ireland. I
mean, as a reading experience.
I come from a Republican kind of family, so my loyalties lie with the Republican side of the movement. And it's just, maybe it's just too hot potato still for me to be talking about on my channel, and my passions would be engorged. But I should do actually. You know what I'll do? What I will do? I can't do it now. I'll do one of your kind of starter kits to reading.
Love them.
Irish history, and I'll include a subsection for the Troubles in Northern Ireland. That might be the best way out of it.
So we have another for you, Jason. You see it on your screen?
Yeah. Oh, I have to put my glasses on. How has the Roman Catholic Church changed since Vatican II? That's a big question, Alan. How has the Catholic Church changed? The Roman Catholic Church changed since Vatican II? On the surface, in a lot of ways, in its presentation to its congregation and to the wider world. As to its operation as a totally human-run, fallible, flawed institution, it hasn't changed one single bit. It's still as badly run, as mismanaged as it ever was as a church. But the biggest changes have been to deepen theological splits, schisms, and divides between traditional sedevacitist conservative Catholics versus modern Catholics who are more willing to embrace the realities on the ground of the modern world we live in, where not everyone has the same education, where not everyone falls in love with the same type of person, where not everyone feels the need to go into a dark room and confess their sins to someone who's essentially a stranger, where we need to recognize that people are people, and what I believe in my heart should have no influence bearing our decision-making, policy-making position when it comes to anyone else's beliefs or lack thereof. But I'm not your traditional opposing Second Vatican Council Catholic. There's a lot to go into it about it. But the church is as broken as flawed as the day Peter stood on a rock and declared it so.
What wasn't a large part of the organizing attitude of Vatican II that if we don't give millions of Catholics in the world a Catholic church they can believe in, they'll simply leave?
Yeah, and they continue to leave in their hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, we need something that's less regimented, more inclusive, that's more socially responsible, that's less science rejecting. We need the Mass in English, all that sort of stuff. If we don't give people that Catholic church, they'll leave.
I think I've lost.
Did he freeze up?
At the mere mention of the Mass in English, he froze up.
I think he froze up the minute we saw Bookish come across our feed. Dude.
Oh no, is Bookish here? Oh no, we've already vilified him. I always think about the change in from the Latin Mass. In the Latin Mass, when it was time to send out for the offerings to pass the plate in church, the line in the Latin Mass was Dominus vobiscum, and the joke was that the priest would say Dominus to the altar boy. He would say, Dominus, go frisk him, because you're about to go out and ask for money. You're about to pass the plate.
In when we had my father was an Episcopal priest, rather high church, and when we changed the prayer book from the 1928 prayer book in the 1970s to a more modern language, we almost lost half the church. And my father used to look at him and say, 1928, it's just not been that long. So when we saw it with the King James Bible, right?
Right, and the Book of Common Prayer.
Yeah.
That kicked up a huge, huge scandal at the time, because the Book of Common Prayer went from being beautifully written to being written by committee. So nobody liked, just on a level of literature, nobody liked that difference.
So we lost Jason.
We lost Jason and we gained Brian at Bookish.
Yeah.
What kind of a satanic bargain is this? Good Lord.
It had nothing to do with me. Oh, we got
He's back.
So a whole bunch of traditional Catholics just attacked walls. I had to fight them off with my Benedictine moves there and get rid of them. No, I just lost internet connection. No conspiracy.
Et cum spiritu tuo.
And I was saying there, Duncan McCurdy, how are you doing, Duncan, up there in Canada? Yes, I do enjoy the Wolf Tones very much. And I've been known to sing rebel songs and Irish ballads into the small hours of the morning. Not very well, but I do sing them.
We're going to need a little more whiskey when you show up. I thought we were.
Yes. Who knows what the singing would be like? You can handle the Wolf Tones until the wee small hours. I might break into Ethel Merman.
Oh, Brian from Bookish is here.
Yes.
You say there's one less goat on the planet.
He probably did some sort of sacrifice. That's probably what he's referring to.
He means me, the greatest of all time. That goat, is it? Okay. Yeah. Benedictine Jiu-Jitsu, that's it, Peg. Yeah.
This chat is just a rogues gallery of the very worst. what Wellington referred to as the scum of the earth.
Oh, I can see it now. So I reduced my screen and I can see the comments on the side here now.
They're not much. Good Lord.
Oh, Benedictine monastery in Ireland. Would that be Glenstall, Edmund, I wonder? There isn't too many Benedictine monasteries here.
Put the answer up there, then.
What do you want to put as their answer?
He asked about Benedictine monastery, and then Jason asked if he knew which one.
I can see the comments here now, Mark, on my screen.
Okay.
There you go, Steve. There's no business like show business.
I'm resisting the urge to start singing. It would disturb the being.
I think we have our answer from Brian here.
I am the GOA. Thanks, Brian. MVP. Right.
I got an email.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Scott, how you doing?
Oh, so it was Glenstall.
Yeah, maybe so.
Beautiful place. I mean, I saw the pictures and then the library in Glenstall.
If you guys ever come here, I mean, definitely I'll take you there, take you down into the icon chapel underneath the nave of the church. Beautiful. Talk about catacombs. Beautiful. But it's on like 400 acres. It's like a working farm as well. Because the thing about the Benedictines is they've got to make their own income to support the monastery, and it costs a nice bit of money, you know.
No, I looked at it online. It's beautiful.
Why does Steve hate me so much? Isn't that obvious? You have a bigger miniature schnauzer than I do. Her miniature schnauzer is bigger than mine.
Peg is the greatest book hauler.
Oh, I wouldn't.
Full stop, isn't she?
You see them, the bottles just grow.
They're huge.
Yeah.
What? And they're new.
Yeah.
How's she going to move all those books?
I wouldn't like movers, I imagine.
Oh, yeah.
Just recently had to do something like that myself. Not easy to arrange in the middle of a pandemic. Not at all.
Yeah, you moved all your books recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I didn't, but they were moved. Yeah, every single one of them. And it was a great thing to do because I had what every book person really needs, which is a total reset. Where I'm standing there looking at blank walls with a stack of empty bookcases. I could decide where they should go. First the bookcases and then the books. That was tremendous. It helped a lot.
It's a joy. I just rearranged all these shelves behind me yesterday and today, and I had great fun just placing books beside their new neighbors. Yeah.
The only problem I have with this new arrangement is that the sun just marches around the place.
Yeah.
And it just blasts every bookcase in turn in every room at some point every day.
Every day. Here, I see here, do I have any interest in JFK? I do, yes. I saw an interesting infographic yesterday that 23 of the 46 American presidents have an Irish lineage somewhere in the line, which shouldn't be surprising considering the many Irish moved to America. Yeah, the JFK is interesting. I have slated to read Reasonable Doubt again. You know that book, Reasonable Doubt, Steve?
I do. I
yeah.
know every single book.
But I pulled that out last year to read, and I never got around to it, so I must read it this year.
The thing about Reasonable Doubt is everything moves on. You know, you have to keep that in mind when you're reading any book on, especially the assassination. You have to keep in mind, things come to light.
It's like Jack the Ripper,
right? Like Jack the Ripper.
Yeah. I see someone talking about Kieran Carson there, great poet, Matthew Baxter from Northern Ireland. Excellent.
Everybody's rearranging books.
Yeah, we're available for hire for private rearranging services.
I do that.
British sitcom lasted the summer.
All these cultural references.
All we need is Nora Batty now. We're away at a hack.
I keep trying to make time for video and TV watching, and I just don't do it. Every time I set time aside, I just read instead.
Do you know what I started doing? I started chronologically watching the MCU movies because I haven't seen most of them.
No kidding.
I started with the first Captain America, then Agent Marvel, then Iron Man 1. That's as far as I am. And I'm loving it. They're just great entertainment.
Oh, so you're watching them in chronological order of
the time they're set in. Yeah. It's on Disney Plus, so they have a list like that.
Oh, wow. Do they
really? And they're great fun. I haven't seen most of them, and I'm really enjoying them just for what they are.
They are reliably great fun. Reliably great. And every once in a while, in the midst of the popcorn fun, there'll be something that's genuinely good. There'll be a moment that's genuinely good. Like, for instance, in Captain America, the very last scene, the very last line of the movie, where Captain America's looking around at Times Square and then says, "I had a date." Yeah. And that's how they end it. They end it right on that line, perfectly understated.
Yeah. Very funny, actually. Yeah. It was good. Yeah.
And Chris Evans is from Massachusetts, of course. He's been such a fan favorite as Captain America that Marvel has succeeded in luring him back, even though in the very end of the series he's not Captain America anymore.
Yeah. And my boys who've seen all these, like 2 teenage boys, they've already warned me to watch to the end of the credits for the little
scenes at the end.
Little segues or Easter eggs or something. So yeah, it's been good. So I look forward to that. I'll do that over the next little while.
Is the family watching it with you? The whole thing?
On and off, because they've seen most of them. I'm way behind on that stuff.
I'm trying to think what would be your next one if you're going in chronological order.
Iron Man.
It would just be the Iron Man movies, wouldn't it?
Iron Man, I think, then Thor.
Then Thor.
Iron Man 2, then Thor.
And then Avengers.
Thor. And then Avengers, I think.
Right, Iron Man 2, because that's where Black Widow is introduced.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, you need all those characters. Hawkeye makes his appearance in Thor. So you need to bring all those together before you can get into the Avengers.
Who's going to be the
Chris Evans, son of a gun.
Really? You got me into those novels. That's what we're talking the novels, right?
Yeah. They're the big news now out of Marvel is that they've almost succeeded in convincing Chris Evans to reprise Captain America. When the whole idea was that Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. were gone, that there was time to make room for a new MCU. Oh, do we have any plans on rereading any favorites? That's a perfect question. If I could convince the two of you to do a read-along. A read-along would be a lot of fun.
With you, is it? Me and Mark have a couple of read-alongs scheduled already.
Yeah, but not with me.
No.
Yeah.
I would like to do Lord of the Rings.
After you go off here to have a real Zoom chat.
I think David Murphy wants to do a read along of the Silmarillion. Gladly do that.
Yeah.
I am coming up sooner or later, whether I have Mark with me or not, on a reread of all of Aubrey and Maturin. That's on. I so much want to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that set Mark has.
His set is mighty nice, but not for reading, right? You would
hats off for that one.
Yeah.
That's the set to have.
And,
I'd read.
Bill Rutenberg, I think, mentioned in this chat that he's planning on reading Shelby Foote, The Civil War, and I would like to reread that.
Yeah.
But I'm not welcome in any of these read-alongs because I smell.
Did he say something? Was Steve talking?
I don't know.
Oh,
I see his lips moving. I don't know. Just humor him.
oh, okay.
What time did you say his medication kicks in at? Normally? Not totally sure.
You hear how they're talking about me.
I'm going to reread, so being seriously, I'm going to reread all of Umberto Eco's 7 novels this year, just myself, not Buddy reads.
You're going to reread Foucault's Pendulum again?
I read it every year, at least once or twice. Yeah. The last one I didn't really enjoy because I was reading it to do a bloody read along. I much prefer just sitting down and bashing it out myself, you know. So I'm going to start with Name of the Rose because I got it's quite good. I haven't got into it fully yet. There was a TV adaptation of The Name of the Rose. It's like just a 6-parter. I got it on Christmas there. I must stick it on and just watch it, and I'll kick off the book then after that. Yeah.
I'm gonna try to reread some.
Brian, I have news for you. Steve doesn't smell of elderberries. He smells of monk beans. Mung beans. He's like Creed from The Office. If we were in The Office, I'd be Jim Halpert, obviously. Mark would be Dwight Schrute, and Steve would be Creed Bratton.
Mark, I always think of that in Star Trek where
look.
Cisco is listening while his two crew members are thinking of how they're going to torment Mr.
Deirdre's in the room, but she won't come
out.
out.
He smells. And Chief O'Brien says, just say it's a rich peaty aroma. I always think of that. When the subject of bodily aroma comes up, I always think of O'Brien saying, just give it as a rich peaty aroma. And Cisco doesn't reprimand them. Instead, he says, if you two want to torture Mr. Worf, do it on your own time.
I just got a nice coffee delivered from Deirdre, and this is my Marvel.
Oh, look at that.
What are you doing?
It's a mug for superheroes.
Oh,
hey, there we go.
My God. It's Madeline.
Jason, am I a fan of Stephen King? I am a fan of Stephen King. Yeah, love Stephen King.
Yeah.
He's going to be as tall as you by the time I get up there again.
My older boy, he's as tall as I am.
Yeah, Steve would be Creed. I agree, Brian. Yeah. Put it in the comments, folks. How many of you think Steve would be Creed? Or Michael Scott, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I like Stephen King. I like Salem's Lot. I like some of the older stuff.
Who isn't a fan of Stephen King? Was that the question?
Is he talking?
Yeah, I much prefer The Stand for me is a brilliant book.
Yeah, I like Stephen.
I could read The Stand again tomorrow and absolutely enjoy it as much as the first 5 times I've read it. Yep. But Cujo, I think, is a very underrated book of his.
How can the two of you, of all people, be praising The Stand when you have read great post-apocalyptic novels? With other people, I could maybe see it because they haven't read anything else. How can the two of you be praising that gigantic pile of crap when you've read Alas, Babylon or On the Beach?
Well, On the Beach is a great book. Okay. The Stand is cinema between book covers. It's so sprawling. That's what I love about it. You know, Moon spells terrific in my book. It's just I like the way the characters are drawn. And this isn't highfalutin literary criticism. You know, it's something I don't do on my channel. I don't do a lot of literary criticism and stuff like that. I studied at university and I could write lit crit essays. All the times I just like a book or I don't, and I really like The Stand. It holds a place from when I read it the first time, and I will read it again. And I'll put you in the corner with Brian at Bookish, who doesn't like Stephen King either, and you can have your own little non-King fan club.
Look at all this Stephen King love in the comment section.
Summer, a lady of exquisite taste, we could all agree. She's read it 3 times and loves it.
Exquisite taste. Look at her cats.
Yeah.
Oh,
I just asked Deb to block Brian from Bookish.
good luck. I've tried many
He's
times.
got soft copy out and everything, yeah.
Logically impossible. He's like the one to get by it.
Yeah. But the stand is like an event. I think too, maybe for a lot of people, and I could be included in that because I read it quite young. It was one of the first big books I read.
Yes. Now, how much credit how much leeway are you giving it because of that?
Well, of course, I've said in the past, for me, a lot of older Stephen King is nostalgia. It's a pure nostalgia read. Salem's Lot, Needful Things.
Love Salem's Lot.
You know, these are books I can just pick up and read, and I love them. I know the characters. I know Castle Rock like the back of my hand. You know, I just enjoy them, and that's what I'm saying. There's nothing wrong with just enjoying a good book because how it makes you feel.
No, there isn't. But Salem's Lot, you can go back to Salem's Lot and you can piece together that it is, in addition to being a nostalgic favorite, also a fairly solid book.
Yeah.
I don't think you can do that with The Stand.
Steve, you do the same thing. My son, when you visited, when you mentioned DC Comics, he almost threw you out the door. It's just nostalgia. It's just nostalgia. He tried to teach you.
That's not true. DC Comics is wonderful.
Oh, a little nostalgia there.
There we go.
Just saying.
Just saying. And it is a good TV miniseries.
All right. If my love of 1950s Superman is nostalgia, at least I would be willing to admit that. I wouldn't go back and say that it's Frank Miller. I would. The thing that always bothers me about Stephen King is when people who cut their reading teeth on his books,
yeah,
and have an entirely emotional connection to him, refuse to admit that once they're adult readers. Same problem that I have with Harry Potter, with the Harry Potter novels, where Harry Potter kids who grew up reading those books then wanted it in their curriculum at school. And you would say, okay, well, you can love the books, but they still stink. They can't be in your curriculum.
One thing to say about Harry Potter, if Harry Potter hadn't happened, I'd probably be looking for another job. Because half the people who come into my library became readers because of Harry Potter.
Mm.
I appreciate the heck of Harry Potter for that.
Now, those people who come to your library and grew up on him, do they follow the controversies with our J.K. Rowling, or do they care? They don't care?
No.
Oh, but
To be honest with you, this new fashion of like hypertext linking authors and their works and everything that they subsequently utter about a book. You know, they had a book 10 years ago and they tweet something 5 minutes ago, and then it's like, well, because of X, Y. I just don't see it. I'm just too old.
Or it's the other way around. Sometimes you have a book that they just came out, but they tweeted something 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It works both ways.
I just kind of this jumping on the bandwagon and taking sides and hashtagging it. I just come from a different place where I kind of go, oh God, we're you know, if we weren't allowed a few screw ups in life, God help us all.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, if we weren't
in the 21st century, in the world of social media, you are not allowed to make a misstep.
No, you can't put your foot in it once, and as soon as you're backpedaling, you're obviously only covering something else up.
Right.
And I just don't engage in it. I don't get it. I have books on myself, and I guarantee you, I go into any decent sized library that anyone has who has that kind of opinion, I'll pull 20 authors off the shelf and say, here's a rapist. Here's someone who frauded all people out of all their money. And they don't know because they don't have Twitter accounts. They're dead.
They're dead.
Yes. Most people just don't care that come into the library. They could care.
That's good. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Oh,
Way too many people. That's part of the reason why I stay off of book Instagram, because so many people there, it can be so poisonous.
But how lucky would you be to have Mark as a librarian?
I tell you, I like being.
Wow, very lucky, Mark. Very lucky.
I mean,
But what's it like there now? What's it like at the library these days?
well, we're open. We've been open since June 5th. So we've been open for the whole thing. We don't have as many hours and only a certain number of people in the building. We have protective stuff and face masks. You have to wear them. But the people here are just happy we're there, because a lot of them don't have, that's it. That's their social contact.
And I think you told me you've done away with people coming and simply sitting.
Yeah, you can't stay there for hours. It's not, because we have limit on space, a number of people are allowed in, but, it hardly ever happens. People right now are nervous.
Yeah.
Do what they want. Don't always bring in their kids. They'll have a list of what they want for their kids, because the kids out in the car are not going to bring, and that's fine. Well, we'll deliver it out to their car if they want us to, but we're open.
Jason, what about in your neck of the woods? Are libraries open?
Libraries are closed at the moment, as far as I know. I think even for curbside now, most libraries now in Ireland they're great now because they're free to join for starters. There's no subscription. There used to be a small subscription years ago, and they used to charge fines if you had a book out for a long time. They've done away with that now. It's a whole new library system. But they do. I don't use it because I don't use an e-reader. But they do have electronic e-loan, I guess you'd call it, and that seems to be pretty popular. But we have a big local library here, and I use it for all kinds of things. Sometimes getting books. I bring the kids down because it's the experience of going there. Leave them rifle through the books and pick out what's there. And I have to say, and it's not because Mark is one, but generally I have found librarians throughout the years that I've met to be just, I don't think you'd last in the library if you didn't love books and bookish people, and some of the really genuinely nicest people I've met. I've become friends with every librarian I've ever had because of the conversations at the checkout desk when you return books and you say, oh, I think, and then that glorious moment when they turn to you and say, by the way, this came back and I think you might be interested. Some new out book that there's a list waiting for, but they know you'll dig it first. And I've had librarians like that, and it's just terrific. Brilliant stuff.
Yeah, I worry about them. What are they doing? What are those people doing without their libraries open?
It's a tough one. Yeah, it's a tough one. We've been boxing up books and dropping them around to some people we know who are on their own here in Shannon. So Deirdre knows a few people. I know a few people who would be readers. And we've been boxing up cardboard boxes of books and sticking a box of sweets and stuff in it. And we leave them usually in their porch so they can leave it there for overnight or something till it's done. And then when they're done, we take them back and pass them on to the next.
Are people in Ireland getting regular money? Regular payment from the government?
Yeah, they have if you lost your job because of COVID or couldn't work, you get I think they give like €350 a week or something like that as a COVID payment. And then the banks will stop they'll put a freeze on mortgage payments. There's a freeze on evictions. You can't be evicted from your apartment or house because of non-payment of rent and stuff like that. So yeah, we live in a socialist hellhole. So we have free Medicaid. We have free medical health for everyone in the country who wants it. You can go see your doctor and get your prescription and go to hospital and have your operation, and you don't have to sell your remaining kidney to pay the bill. So, and when it comes to social welfare like that, we have of course it can't run forever because this is on top of other benefits. So the government is helping businesses with targeted loans to sectors that are suffering, hospitality, shops, retail, that kind of stuff. And then if you lost your job because of shutdown, lockdown, you're entitled to a COVID payment. And a lot of employers as well are still paying people when they're out as well and that kind of stuff.
So when we went into lockdown, we closed from March until June 5th.
Yeah.
The health department actually went to our governor and asked that he open the libraries again because
Yeah.
they're worried about mental health.
Mental health. Yeah.
Wow.
So, as far as population goes, and
Yeah.
they were worried with shut-ins. They were worried that
I have to say, Mark, my biggest, there's talk now about long COVID where people have these symptoms for a long time. I think mental health is going to be the long takeaway from the lockdowns and that kind of stuff here anyway. And governments are great at talking about mental health, but they're not great at resourcing it because it's an invisible illness.
Right.
It's easier to spend money putting new hips in people and showing them get up and walk, but spending money to pay for someone to go for a couple of years counselling, there's no visible return that politicians can stand up and say, I made all this happen. So I think they pay a lot of lip service, but I think we're going to need a huge amount of mental health support after this.
A long term.
People who have missed out a whole year now in Ireland of their lives.
yeah.
It's like being incarcerated for a year. I know it's comfy and they've got computers, but their movement is restricted.
Well, I see some of that. My youngest boy has ADHD.
Yeah.
So that affects how he reacts socially.
Mm-hmm.
Worry about that with learning from home.
Yeah.
Because you get that there's teachers that are good at teaching these little people how to socialize. So I was saying that. So some of this could go on for decades and decades.
Some of the outcomes will last a long time, I think. Yeah. But we've all just got to, like I always say, do what you can where you are. Help the people closest to you. None of us are going to save the world, but I can sure as heck make sure my neighbour doesn't go without a loaf of bread and a pint of milk.
Right.
It's not rocket science a lot of the time.
My neighbors are jerks.
Neighbours are all fans of John Grisham. Poor Jeff Puddester has asked this question.
John Grisham.
John Grisham, I've never been a huge fan. And what's the other guy who writes a lot of books? He's a ghostwriter now. I think he passed away recently. James Patterson?
Who?
James Patterson. Yeah. I liked John Grisham's early thriller books, like The Client. Did he write The Client? No. Yeah. And I thought some of his early books were really good, and then I got the sense he wasn't writing them really anymore. I could be wrong. And I know James Patterson, some of his, again, early books I quite enjoyed. And then it was James Patterson, but really the person that wrote it got the sub-billing.
I think with Grisham, it's easy to see the exact moment when he realized that he was an institution, that he couldn't be edited, that the book was going to be a bestseller anyway.
Yeah.
When an author's not hustling to earn it anymore, often that shows. You can often see that in the prose, even if they are writing every word. It changed completely. Mm-hmm. I think. Actually having Mark here in the live stream, an author who that didn't happen was Clive Cussler. He hustled in every book.
He prepared for people to take over his series.
Yeah. Yeah, but even before he had co-writers coming in, even when his publisher knew that they'd make $1 million on his book, he was still working hard to entertain in the pages.
Yeah.
Whereas Grisham,
there's
some Grisham, some of his stuff. What's the one I'm thinking of? About 4 novels in to his career. So The Firm came out, and then The Client came. The earlier book came out second once The Firm took off, and then about 4 books in, you could feel that some sort of tension had gone. That something was there that he didn't have to earn anymore.
Yeah.
My point is always that every author has to earn that all the time. It doesn't have anything to do with the financial statements you're getting from your publisher. Mm. And best-selling mega name authors tend not to do that. They tend to reach a certain point, realize that they're an institution, and then start phoning it in.
Further
back to Stephen King, doesn't it?
Oh, how very dare you!
How very dare you!
Yeah.
My neighbor's dogs are wonderful, though.
Or yeah, I
They're
see
all wonderful.
Lee Child that writes the Jack Reacher series, which I quite enjoy. They're great fun books.
They are great fun.
He's handed over to his younger brother, and he's kind of managing the transition, but he's made it very clear that after the next book or two, he will have nothing to do with writing Jack Reacher. It will be entirely his brother.
That phenomenon is new, and it always confuses me what to think about this necrofiction, this institutionalized fiction, where you're just going to keep having Robert Parker novels forever. You're just keep having Clive Cussler novels forever, all set in this world.
Virginia Andrews.
I never understand that. Imagine if people had said that about Faulkner, about Yakima County. That yes, Faulkner's gone, but we're still going to tell stories about this county. The publisher would have been burned. The building would have been burned to the ground.
So Robert Parker, when we get his new one, then I had a guy come up to the desk in the library and start questioning my abilities as a librarian because I didn't have all Parker's books together. Okay, I understand what you're saying. Well, it says big right up across the top. I go, yeah, that's the guy who wrote it. And he thought I was crazy. And I said, go look at the Tom Clancy shelf. For the place here, what are you going to do?
I wonder if the same thing is going to happen with Thomas Harris because his properties are not owned by him. So, and I noticed there's a new TV series starring Clarice Starling. I have a screener for it that I haven't watched yet.
I didn't like his last book, Thomas Harris ones.
You didn't like Carrie Mora?
No, the buried drug money treasure one, was that the one? Yeah. I didn't.
Pablo Escobar, drug money.
Pablo Escobar, that's it. Yeah, I didn't. It was okay, but it wasn't.
I liked it as a reading experience, but when you've got the Hannibal Lecter novels, and you've got the maniacs who are in the Hannibal Lecter novels doing horrible things physically to other people, to women. Mm-hmm. When they're in the Hannibal Lecter novels, you're thinking, okay, these are Hannibal Lecter novels. But then you read Carrie Mora, and it's a different guy doing horrible things to women, and then you start thinking, okay, this is Thomas Harris. These characters. This is the author himself, and that was extremely disturbing. What's the guy's name? The villain in Carrie Mora who has no hair anywhere on his body, even eyelashes. He doesn't have any hair at all anywhere on his body, and he does horrifying things to women. Horrifying. The book calls it modifying. He modifies women for wealthy customers, and the modifications are extensively described. And you're thinking, this isn't Hannibal Lecter anymore. This is just you. You dream about doing these things to women.
We've moved on from it puts the lotion on its skin.
Yeah, exactly. When you've got what's his name? Jane Gum. It puts the lotion on its skin. When you've got that, it's so enmeshed in the action of the book that you think about it there. But if every character in a Thomas Harris novel, all of them started saying that, you'd start thinking it was Harris. I'll be interested. When I thought that about Carrie Mora, I thought, I want to see the next book. I want to, not this one.
Yeah.
I want to see the next one you do. Are you going to go back to the world of the FBI and Hannibal Lecter, or are you going to write something new and it's going to be indistinguishable? I don't know, one way or another. But he doesn't have, if the studio says to him, we want a new product from you. If he says no, they'll just produce it anyway. They own his copy. They own the copyright. Yeah. They can make a Clarice Starling miniseries without him.
Yeah.
So he's sitting there at age, what, 79, 78, something like that, saying, well, I can stand on my principle, or they can make me a consulting editor on the series and I'll be making $50,000 a week. So I think I'll let them do what they want.
Mark, what do you love most about being a librarian?
Oh boy,
the money.
The money's wonderful.
Them dollars.
I'm in a little community. I know everybody. I get to talk about books all the time. If I actually had somebody come in and says, "What are you doing reading?" Well, it's my job. No, I like everything about it. I do a lot of administrative work because I'm not always the person you see when you come into the library, because the library is the other part of my case, government, but or a business. You're always trying to keep the ship afloat. You're always trying to account to the public for every dime, and trying to tell everybody what the value is. And I get great fun out of that. So,
Are you funded from like state taxes or local taxes or
local taxes only.
local taxes only?
So everything on the street, I better have an answer for.
Yeah.
And it's their money. So, but we've been there since 1902. So
Well, yeah.
second,
Steve was at the opening day.
our second pandemic.
Yeah, wow, who could say that?
Huh.
Yeah.
Of course, referring to what Donald Trump calls the Spanish flu pandemic of 1917. He's the only person in the world who refers to the Spanish flu pandemic of 1917, and no one's ever correct.
He said it once and couldn't be corrected.
Yeah, he can't be corrected.
What was written into the history books.
So actually what I'm doing now, because I couldn't find a lot of the library director back then's records.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Extensive daily notebooks that I'll leave there for, when this happens again in 100 years.
Yeah.
Where are the old ones?
Well, we don't know. We have no idea. Go to the cemetery and look at the dates and get a pretty good idea what's going on. You see some town records, but not as extensive as you would. I thought that was a problem. So we're doing our best and we're doing an oral history project with local people. We're recording what they're going through and how this is affecting them.
Yeah.
I wonder where all those old records are. Are they up in the attic of your library?
I don't go up there.
They're probably up in my attic.
Jason's attic. I know you had lots of ambitious plans for the attic of your library. Those have all been put on hold, right? Because of the pandemic?
Well, we changed it. I got an architect coming 3 weeks, and we're going to expand out the back.
Oh.
Yeah. So that'll be our third expansion since I got there. So that's nice.
I don't know. Sounds like big government to me, Mark.
No taxpayer money. None. All donated.
I'm pegging you now as a Ron Swanson. We've moved on from the office now to Parks and Recs. And I can see you're my Ron Swanson of Booktube. You're like, I want all the eggs. And you're like, excuse me, in case you misheard me, I didn't say I want some of the eggs. I want all the eggs.
No, when Mark says no taxes, he's not Ron Swanson. He's Zara Mostel from The Producers. He's going to vanish into little old ladyland. No library without Checky Poo.
Checky Poo. Yeah. Anyway, guys, I think I'm going to have to go because it's approaching midnight and my carriage awaits to whisk me back to my palace.
Well, I'm. You can't really tell from here, but I'm running out of daylight. I've got to take a certain someone for a walk.
I'll have to put this lamp down. There's my outside window there.
Oh, wow, look at that.
Black, and there's a light off in the distance there. That's it. Oh, points it. Look at that. Sláinte Cara.
I've got to walk the bean and then write all night. So.
This has been fun. I appreciate you guys doing this.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Mark. And thank you to behind the scenes, your production crew there in Vermont.
Deb. Yep.
Deb, great instructions. Deb, great job. Looking forward to some of those.
A significantly improved model Deb. he got the new model Deb.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to meeting Deb someday as well. That should be good fun.
Can't wait to have you all over. It's going to be great fun.
So shall we gather again next weekend?
We will set things up. In touch with each other and see how it works. I don't think we can take 2 hours out of Jason's life every weekend. That'll be a
Well,
lot.
it's Sunday night. Yeah, the evening times are okay. Yeah, as long as we talk beforehand, it's okay. Yeah, yeah. You guys only paid me for 2 hours, so I'm leaving now.
You're worth every dime.
As Michael Scott would say, that's what she said. Good night, folks.
All right, good night, everyone.
And take care to everyone in the comments, all 5 of you that turned up, or 50 or whatever.